Hello, you're listening to the Hat of Many Things podcast. Mike is still moving house, and so we have yet another special episode, this time about the Nintendo Switch, with my good friend Wade.
Ahoy!
Who you'll have heard on previous episodes. The Nintendo Switch has been out for about 6 months now, and we've both had one I've had mine since May, June? And how long have you had yours?
Around late June-ish.
Okay, so we've had them both for a few months now. Wade, why don't you tell me why you got the Switch?
I hadn't had a new console in a while, and I really wanted to play Zelda. That was pretty much the defining bit, was I really wanted to play Zelda. I hadn't had a new console in a while, and I felt like treating myself, because life was sad.
That got a bit darker than I was expecting.
Well, not like that bad, but, it was just, unemployment rut. What better to do with your unemployment rut than spend 125 hours playing Zelda?
That's fair.
And accurate.
So I suppose my reasons are kind of similar. I had a more recent Nintendo console than Wade. I had the Wii U, and I was kind of sad that there wasn't a new Zelda on it. So I had actually been spending quite a bit of time playing Skyward Sword and enjoying some of the dungeons on that, because while it's a quite linear Zelda, which by comparison to Breath of the Wild, it's completely different. But Skyward Sword has some very good, interesting dungeons with the kind of time mechanics and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. But yes, I had a Wii U. I actually quite enjoyed the Wii U. There were some good games on it that I had, and I played it quite a bit. Probably the reason I've always liked the Nintendo consoles is that they're great for kind of local multiplayer. So I've had a lot of people come over and play Mario Kart and things like that.
They have kind of kept that alive, where other consoles have just been like, oh, fuck it, who cares? It's all online now.
Yeah.
Which is nice. I mean, it obviously it still hasn't been kept to the extent that it was back in your AD, but it's this thing I stole from Charlie Brooker, your AD.
Fair enough.
But it's nice that they actually kind of do still encourage that. But Nintendo have always been encouraging kind of player interaction. I mean, go back to the original Pokemon games, and it was like, what did they do? Oh, they gave you a fucking Kadabra. Yeah. How do you evolve that? I don't know. Oh, you trade it with someone. Oh, well, suddenly you need a friend, And that was cool that they encouraged that and had them slightly different. Nintendo have always been the kind of pioneers of new things that then get stolen by other people and done better.
Yeah, I think that's probably a fair assessment. I mean, Nintendo still chucks out quality. They still do quality games that are their IP, but the problems they've had with the Wii U is that it didn't really get the third-party support. There were still some brilliant games from Nintendo on there. Sadly, there was no Zelda, but I think technically Breath of the Wild is also on the Wii U, but it came out on the Switch as well. So in the same way that Twilight Princess was on the GameCube and the Wii, I played the Wii version because it was the newer console. So
well,
I think yeah, if they release it on two consoles, I count it as on the newest system, basically.
I was more kind of on about just not games-wise, but console-wise, who had the first Rumble Pack? It was Nintendo. It's battery-powered. You plug it in the base. Who stole the Rumble Pack? PlayStation, and then everyone integrated. Who did the first motion capture thing, really? It was Nintendo.
And I don't think anyone else really did that in the same way. I mean, Kinects have been used for loads of different academic projects because they have so many cameras and they can do 3D mapping and stuff. But the actual games that came out on the Kinect were all pretty ropey. I mean, they used the technology they had well, but I don't think anyone's going to be...
Yeah.
People aren't still talking about that in the way people still talk about Wii Bowling, and that was kind of a phenomenon where pretty much everyone had Wii Sports.
I mean, genuinely even, Wii Sports was the best game on the Nintendo Wii. And it came free with the console.
Yeah.
And that was probably the biggest problem the Nintendo Wii had, was that the best game came free with the console. But there you go. That's what happens.
And there were some weird things. I mean, the problem with Nintendo developing all these new hardware ideas is that they have had them in-house for 2-3 years while they're working on them. They're very good with them. They've optimized for it. And then you get other developers coming in and not really understanding. I played, I think, Call of Duty 3 or 4, not Modern Warfare, but the standard World War II, World War I ones. And there was this mission where you had to disarm mines on the Wii. and you had to do it by like rotating the Wiimote and like pulling out a pin or something. And it was just the most frustrating level because you were also taking fire while doing that, but you were like stuck in this little mini game. It didn't like freeze time. So you would inevitably get shot while trying to do this because you couldn't quite get the remote to pick it up. It may have been better with the Wii
Motion Plus.
Yeah, Motion Plus. Although I don't know if it actually supported that. But
I mean, that sounds horrendous.
Yeah, it was not great. Only time I played a shooter.
I mean, let's be honest.
On the Wii.
If you're going to be disarming a mine in a battlefield, you don't want to be doing it via a motion control thing that's a bit tetchy. Like, that just makes the scenario slightly worse.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think, yeah, it's true. Fair to say Nintendo have generally been very pioneering on the hardware side of things, especially, I mean, the Wii took the world by storm and was the most popular console of its generation because it got into new markets who didn't consider video games to be their kind of thing. And then you got everyone in front of the TV, including your gran, pretending to bowl.
#family.
Yeah. And I remember that it did that well.
Oh, it did.
People will complain about its graphics or whatever, but it did that well. The Wii U, I'll just briefly touch on.
That thing there.
Yeah, that thing over there.
The thing that looks like a Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, I mean, you can actually see, I mean, it's kind of impressive. The idea behind the Wii U controller, which you could only have one of them paired with the actual main console. So Wii U still had spinning discs, whereas the Switch has gone over to having SD card-like things, which allows them to take up less space. But the Wii U controller, one of its things it could do, it has a built-in screen, which is a touch screen. And in some games you have Zombie U is one that's famous for it, where you would be fighting zombies on the top screen, but you can't pause, and your inventory screen is on the touch screen. So you have to look away from the zombies coming to attack you to mess about with your inventory on the screen. So it adds to the theme of the game, and that's really good.
That's interesting. Like, the Switch isn't a touchscreen, is it?
It is a touchscreen.
It is?
Yes. There are touchscreen controls on the Switch, but you don't get to use them if it's in the dock, so I don't really notice them very often.
Oh.
But it is a touchscreen, as I found out when I was just accidentally touched it on a plane.
Fair enough.
But yeah, it's a very similar idea. There's a lot of space actually in the Wii U. As I think was pointed out at the time, there's like room for essentially another 2 battery modules, and people weren't sure if they were going to like expand it. So it's actually quite light. But the thing that was clever about it was you could continue to play a game on that screen, the full game, when you're not using without the TV, basically. So the idea being, kids can have it, mum and dad want to watch TV, flip it over to whatever channel they're watching, and the kid continue to play it on that monitor.
That shines through brilliantly with the Switch as well.
Yeah, and I think you can see how it's all moving a lot across to the Switch, because what they've done at Nintendo is they used to have the handheld division, and then they also used to have the console division as separate things. They spent a lot of money putting those all into one building.
Oh, really?
And so the Wii U clearly shows some of that, but the Switch is clearly that taking off. It's a console. It plugs in at home, and you have it in 1080p on your big TV. But then you can just pick it up and walk off with it, and it becomes a portable console. It has the benefits then of like a DS.
It is amazing how similar they look. I mean, it's like you look at it's like Evolution, but it's like a fossil record of video games. That's what I'm trying to get at, but I can't think of a good analogy of fossils right now. You could show that to an architect who's only seen a Switch, and they'd be like, "This is like the granddad of a Switch." And if they didn't see those resemblances, they'd be blind or stupid. Probably blind.
I think for the listeners who obviously can't see what we have here, to my left I have a stack of consoles. The N64 and the GameCube are there, and the Wii U. And then on the right-hand side, we've got the actual Wii U controller, which is over where it normally used to charge. And then I've got the Switch just sitting next to the TV because it's so small.
2 Switches. Because mine's there too.
Yes. Yeah, I think... So you look at the N64 and the GameCube, and I've got the black GameCube, so I suppose that possibly aids familiarity between the two. But really, the only thing you can see that's the same... The console ports are kind of... You can see the evolution there. The controller ports, you can see the evolution there.
Still 4 ports. Still 2 buttons. Well, I mean, they've turned the power on-off button and switch from a Nintendo 64 from a Switch into a button.
Yeah. The power lights are in similar places. But really, they're not that similar.
I mean, the biggest change really there is it went from a standard non-moving disc. I can't think of a cartridge to a disc.
Yes.
That's the biggest change there.
It's really weird tiny discs that the GameCube had to try and stop people pirating them. Or at least I hear that's what the reason was.
It was about as much of a fad as the mini disc.
Yeah. But then you look at the controllers, and you can draw a parallel. I mean, the D-pad's got smaller and moved around. You can see the analog stick. You can see how that got to the newer analog stick on the GameCube controller.
Oh, that's what I meant to point out before as well. In the things, analog sticks were Nintendo first, I believe.
Yes, I think they were, because the DualShock came after for the PlayStation. It's kind of added on later. You can see, I think you can see from the button. Actually, some of the button colours have moved around because the C sticks the C stick on the N64 was not a stick; it was just C buttons, and then that turned into a C stick, giving you the standard kind of 2 sticks most people are now used to. In the same layout, actually, is right next to an Xbox 360 controller. They're basically in an identical layout, except that the GameCube X, Y, A, and B buttons are all different shapes.
Instead of fucking why not?
Yeah, I mean, I think the idea there is that the A button is the most commonly pressed button, so it's the biggest and easiest to press. The B button's often for things like back, so they've got it slightly over to the side and it's red in colour. I can see the logic there.
That's fair.
Then you move on to the Wiimotes, and they're
completely fucking different.
Well, yeah, they're completely different, but they look like a TV remote. But with the nunchuck, you can still see very similar analog stick kind of design.
That's true.
And it's, in fact, if you look at it, the nunchuck is the middle part of the N64 controller, but now detached on its own.
And with a D-pad. You take the D-pad and stick it on, don't you?
No. So, I mean, the nunchuck is just the analog stick.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
And the Z, and a trigger.
Yeah.
It's not the Z trigger, because that's actually on... Actually, I think it is the Z trigger, because the B button is the one on the Wiimote that's in the trigger location, but it's a second trigger. And again, you can see some design stuff there. Obviously, the D-pads are very similar on all of them. And then the Wii U is like they took the Wii controllers and stuck them on the side of a screen. I mean, that's the concept anyway. It doesn't look very similar, but you've still got a similar style analog stick. We've moved to having 4 pad buttons again, instead of having, 4 pad buttons in the same way the 360 does and like the old SNES used to have. And then the Switch has taken that a step further, and actually you can then...
Take them off again!
Yeah, you can take them off again. And actually that's something that's really quite interesting, because we've been playing Snipper Clips today.
Oh, it was great fun.
Yeah, great fun. Silly game. We'll probably discuss that in a minute. For people who haven't seen a Switch by now, it's a screen with 2 connected controllers to it, called Joy-Cons. When you're playing the Switch as a handheld, they act in exactly the way you'd expect. They're on either side, much like on a DS, or similar to the PS Vita as well. They detach, and they can plug into a dock to make a standard-sized controller. It's a bit of a funky shape, because it's a kind of square shape.
Yeah, it's not very ergonomic. It's okay when you're playing it just itself, but I got a Pro controller, which... after playing with that, it's just not the same. Yeah,
and I don't own a Pro controller, but I got to have a look at Wade's one today, and they are very pretty. I'm tempted to get one now.
He's handled excellence.
Yeah. The problem is the Pro controller is about the cost, well, more than the cost of a full game. So.
Oh, it's true. It's true.
Yeah, I mean, there's not necessarily an incentive for them to bring the price down at the moment, because they're still like flying off the shelves before they can be restocked. So
yeah.
But yes, so the Joy-Con controllers, despite the fact that they're asymmetrical, the 2 Joy-Cons, normally working together as a single controller, when detached and with certain games, can be used as a controller each. And they've actually got some buttons that are normally hidden away underneath the clip, which are like your bumper buttons. So they're actually, you can't see them at all when the Switch is in its dock mode and it's clipped in. But when you've got them in your hands, you can see these 2 little buttons. And they are quite small, but I mean, I have big adult man hands, and I don't have any problem with it, the controller. I mean, there are more comfortable controllers out there, and you can buy more the Pro controller, etc., for the Switch. But, you know, as a thing that comes built in, really cool, and that kind of moves into the whole aspect of being able to take the console with you to a friend's house. It's got a little kickstand, you take it out, and then 2 of you can immediately play a game without you having to buy any extra peripherals, and I think that's really cool. And that's very much that kind of ethos Nintendo's always had about like playing in a party kind of mode with friends. And the games aren't necessarily as taxing as some of the games you might get on other consoles.
Yeah.
Although that's not to say there aren't games like Smash Bros. Melee on the GameCube, which were very very fine control. You know, people are still playing that game.
Still played competitively?
Yeah, still playing it competitively because they can.
You know what I hadn't noticed about the controllers until like you were just talking about it is if you take them off, they're the same. With exception of the shoulder buttons, which are as they are at the minute, and the plus and the minus button, the joystick and then the 4 buttons are the same way around for everyone.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
That's really nice. That's a really like clever little design quirk that I'd never noticed until like you just kind of...
Yeah, so it's interesting because they look asymmetrical in that, much like with other controllers, the analog stick on the left is higher up than the one on the right. And then there's the 4 buttons, like the D-pad equivalent, and the X, Y, and B buttons are just, in the opposite locations. But that means when you rotate them, they end up in the same location, but they are slightly asymmetrical because your hand position on each Joy-Con would be slightly different.
No, it's trivial.
Again, it's a small controller, so you probably wouldn't notice, but there is a slight difference there. The minus and plus buttons are on opposite sides of the remotes as well.
And just means you hit the capture button a lot by accident as well.
Yes, yeah, that did keep happening. So
Don't know what you're on about. I didn't ever do it.
Well, at least you managed to do it at the opportune moment during a snipper clips after we'd done something really cool.
It's true, I had.
But so there's, in addition to your usual 2 analog sticks, D-pad equivalent buttons, and X, Y, A, B, and bumper buttons, and triggers, so there's essentially 2 sets of bumper buttons in the same way as most consoles have nowadays. You can press down on the sticks, can't you, as well? So that's your third.
Yeah, you can click it.
Yeah, so you've got the click-in third button. Very similar to most other controllers. And then there's 2 other buttons. There's a home button, which on the Switch, unlike I haven't played an Xbox One or a PS4, but unlike my previous experience with most consoles, when you press the home button, it just takes you back to the front screen.
Yeah.
And it pauses the game, which is really useful when you can take it around and do stuff with it.
I'm just trying to think like the home button in the Xbox. If you were in the middle of playing a game and you pressed it, it would ask you if you wanted. It would bring up a small pop-up, but not take you out. But that was in the Xbox 360. I think the Xbox One does take you out of the game,
and then pause in the same way.
And then pause or keep the game running. I think that's a bit more similar.
Right.
Like I don't own one, and I'm just trying to recall from vague playing and possibly pressing the button by accident.
No, yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, there may be something other consoles are doing right now. The Switch is my current gen console that I have. And then the other button is this screenshot button.
Which is awesome.
What
a neat feature.
Yeah, that's really clever. I mean, do you want to go on about it?
Well, I mean, like, it's just really nice. I mean, well, we were talking about it in snipper clips, and that's a little silly little party game, which we'll probably talk about more later, but it's cool for that because it's like, yeah, look, we did something cool. I'll cut you into a stupid bell end or something. But where it really shines is in, like some of these other games, because there's a lot of people who nowadays, games are very on like social media, and it's all like, oh, look at this cool thing I did. Look at this cool thing I did. And before you'd have to just kind of describe it or record it. And recording things takes a lot of effort and money to buy the cards and the capture cards and all that malarkey. With this, you just done. It's like, I want to send a really cool photo to my friend because I found this really cool place in Breath of the Wild, mostly because that's an exploratory game and you're going to find a lot of cool places.
And it's a beautiful game as well.
It's beautiful, yeah. You click, done. There it is. Oh, look, I've frozen the goblin. I can look up his pants. Click, there it is. Oh, look, I accidentally fell off a cliff because I'm stupid. Click, there it is. Or, sometimes you just press it by accident. Oh, look, I'm dressed up as a lady. Click, there it is. It's a really nifty feature. I've heard that they're going to be bringing video clips into it as well. But, I mean, we heard that probably a month ago or more, and we haven't seen anything from that. Which is a shame, because that'll be most excellent.
That will be really cool. Another thing you do, so you get a screenshot library, it just goes onto the built-in memory, and you can then directly share those posts to Twitter and I think Facebook
as well.
Yeah, so I've got it hooked up to Twitter because my Twitter will automatically post to Facebook for me, so I don't need to have it signed in on both. But yeah, you can post them both separately if you want, and that's really cool. You do have to use like the on-screen keyboard if you're filling in. I think it fills in a hashtag of Nintendo Switch, and then everything else you have to fill in yourself. But again, with something like Twitter, it's only 140 characters. It's normally fine.
Yeah, and you're not going to write a fucking essay for a screenshot, are you?
No.
Unless you're doing a very weird degree.
Yeah, no, that's a really cool feature. Another thing that's worth mentioning, and this was actually a slightly annoying, but actually it's really clever when you think about it. So on the Wii U, there was a symbol for like NFC communication, so you can tap your amiibos to it.
Right.
and it's just there, and there's like a big bare part of the controller.
Oh, that's at the bottom left under the D-pad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, there's it's like two rectangles overlapping. It's the symbol they use for NFC, and you tap your amiibos there, and they do whatever they do in the game. You can register them, and the way that works, if you've not used amiibos before, is when you tap it in a game. If you tap it, it sometimes has an immediate effect, but if you're like registering it or whatever, when you first tap it, it reads the details. You can then put the amiibo down, do all the stuff you want to do, and then you tap the amiibo to write the data, and it will tell you if the write has been successful. And you can store one game's data on each amiibo.
Ah, so it's like a memory card.
It has that. I mean, it depends on the game. So all of mine are Super Smash Bros.
Character IDs, aren't they? Also?
Super Smash Bros. 4, I think. I think that's official term, but it's just called Super Smash Bros. for Wii U/3DS. You can tap them in game to get freebies every day, but also they have a bot character, and you set their colours, and you can actually change their moves. So there are like extra moves they can earn, and they level up as you fight them, and eventually you get to the point where they beat your ass every time. So, and that's stored on there, but you can only store one thing from each game, but I don't have any other games that stored anything.
Right.
So in everything else, they were just like free unlocks or whatever.
Yay.
And they do that in some of the Switch games as well, so they're all compatible. But yeah, the clever thing, which was slightly frustrating because I didn't know where it was at first because there was no obvious symbol, but the amiibo sensor is in the right analog stick.
I mean, that's
clever. It's clever and also kind of crazy. You would never, like, I was kind of shocked when I read about it, but I was like, that's really clever. And you just tap it on there and then it works.
I mean, that's ridiculous. Why would you put it there?
It is, yeah, just a bit of an interesting choice. Because I actually thought, before I knew what the screenshot button was, I just thought that was going to be it, because it was like, it didn't look like a button because it's quite flat.
Yeah, very
like the home
square.
button. Yeah.
You'll notice in our talk about controllers, now we didn't go any further back than Nintendo 64, because when you do that, the morphology link just kind of disappears, because that was when games consoles were a lot more primitive. I mean, shoulder buttons still existed, and they had like 4 buttons, but joysticks weren't a thing. And if you look at the difference between if you go from SNES or Super NES or Super Nintendo, however you want to say it, I'm calling it a SNES. Ditch all the haters. Haters be haters, yo. If you jump from that one to the N64 controller, you think, bloody wazzock, what happened there? So that we didn't go there. And I don't even know what a NES controller looks like. I think it's just a square SNES controller, isn't it?
Yeah, basically. So the SNES controller was kind of like a rectangle with 2 circles on the end.
2 slightly rounded bits. I made a SNES cake once for my birthday. I'll show you a picture. And the audience,
go in the show notes, of course.
The audience won't be able to see this yet, but you know, they'll see it eventually, and they'll be like, "Oh, that's being wizard, Matt Wade." There you go.
That seems pretty accurate. It's a bit less rectangly in the middle, but yeah, I think that's fairly. As far as cake goes, cake's not the most conducive medium to accuracy.
Oh, not when you're an 18-year-old boy. It's not.
Definitely not. No. Yeah, the SNES controller was kind of this rectangular thing, a rounded thing. It had the 4 buttons, X, Y, A, and B, and then the NES was it was just square, but then things were quite square in the 80s. Cars were square, things were square. It was
Which
the
is
end
interesting because they must have essentially dropped a button for the N64. I mean,
they dropped X and Y.
Well, yeah,
so
essentially
they brought in Z.
One of them became Z, so that's the same thing. And then one of them came the C-pad.
Yes.
Where, one button becomes 4. Anyway, digress.
Yeah. And another reason I think I generally start with an N64 is it was my first console after much pleading and begging and convincing my parents that my friend was getting one when he was doing exactly the same thing to his parents.
Nice.
So we weren't allowed consoles because, might rot your brain kind of thing. Things that now we look back on it, it's kind of silly that people thought those things, but
it is.
But I had my best friend, he really wanted one and I really wanted one. And both of our parents said, well, you can only have it if one of your friends got it, because trusting the other parents to make the right decision. So we both lied blind and said that the other one was already getting one and then got them in quick succession. Many days spent on GoldenEye, which was rated 15, but, you could probably get away with it back then because the graphics weren't accurate enough to really display the gore and everything.
They were not.
They were not.
They were not.
It was a 15, but, I'd already seen GoldenEye the movie. Otherwise, I wouldn't have known that the game was a thing I wanted. So,
Good times.
I suppose we should probably move on to discussing games on the Switch. So we've both heavily played Breath of the Wild. Wade has played it more heavily than I because I've been busy, sadly, with work, which kind of gets in the way. Do you want to... What is your history with the Zelda series, Wade?
My history is way back on the SNES. I had A Link to the Past. That was a fantastic game.
Yep.
I had, because it was secondhand and it came with free files, as a lot of games did back then. One of the files was a fully completed version.
Oh, nice.
And that was really cool. And so the other one I started, and I got stuck at after, if you've ever played Link to the Past and hashtag spoilers coming, there's a beginning arc where you do 3 castles and get these pendants. Castles is the wrong word for temples. And then you go and fight Agahim and he's all like, "Rah-ha-ha," and sends Zelda away. And you're like, oh shit, that happened. And that was a really powerful moment as a kid, actually. That's one of the reasons that that's a fantastic game is I remember the Anyway, then you go through the Dark World and do the 7 dungeons there. But you have to get the moon pearl. I couldn't get the moon pearl because I was a stupid child and didn't understand that you could just fall through a floor on top of the treasure chest that you had to do.
Yeah.
Hashtag spoilers.
I think it's probably fair to say that
it's old enough that it's not spoilers.
I think we're going to talk about some old games, and it's old enough that there are not spoilers. When we get onto the Breath of the Wild, we will sound the spoiler horn. Yeah,
I won't do that every time. Certainly not with such consistency.
Not with the levels that's happening there on the recording. It's going to sound awful. But yeah.
Anyway, I had that as a kid, and that was amazing. Then I had Ocarina of Time on the N64, and that was just phenomenal. And I actually completed that as a child, so I was happy about that. Then I would like to say that I probably got Link to the Past on the Game Boy Advance.
Yep.
Next. Remake, because I was like, I never completed that, and it was fucking awesome. And I completed it, and it was awesome. And then I probably got Majora's Mask kind of in my late, just before college/college era, when I was buying a lot of secondhand N64 games, and I got Majora's Mask, and I enjoyed it a lot, but not as much as Ocarina of Time or Link to the Past. And then I've also played, what's that one? The Minish Cap, which was enjoyable. I never completed the final boss, and I couldn't be bothered to grind through it because I'd done 99% of the game by that point anyway. And I'm not one of these people who, I actually didn't know that's a complete lie. Sometimes I am one of these people who needs to complete everything in a game. We'll come on to that. Those are all the games I played before Breath of the Wild. And I was just like, oh, new Zelda game. Oh, it looks new fancy. Oh, it looks so lovely. Oh, it's no longer linear, which most Zelda games don't feel that linear anyway. But I mean, they are.
Well, so we'll just drop in a bit of history here before I talk about my personal history with Zelda games. But in the original Zelda on the NES,
oh well, that was very free.
That is very free open world, and that is something that Breath of the Wild's kind of come back to. But that was a thing that I think they probably felt. I think they probably felt they couldn't do that when they were moving to more powerful hardware and having I think it was a choice that was made, to script the story more.
Oh, but it made a lot of sense. And it gave some... If they didn't have any story in some of the other games, the series wouldn't be half as successful as it is. And I actually had played the original as well when I got my Game Boy Advance, but I'd forgotten about it.
So I actually think I didn't own a SNES, but I think first Zelda game I actually played was because I was allowed to have portable consoles.
Yay!
Before I had the N64. And I had a Game Boy Color, and on the Game Boy Color I had Link's Awakening DX, which is the same game, but in colour, on a Game Boy Color. I think there was probably a black and white version before that they released.
Shrugging shoulders.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm pretty certain they did also release a black and white version for the Game Boy itself, but anyway. I can't remember if it was the moon part. I don't remember it as clearly as you, but I definitely got stuck on something because I was a young child playing a Zelda game and hadn't got my head around it.
Were you stuck forever as a rabbit?
I don't remember. I just remember not... I don't think I really got into it. I didn't get Zelda at the time. I was probably too young for it when I had that. And that's a shame because it's a great game, but at the time, didn't really play it. And then I had the N64, and the N64 was, as I've alluded to previously, very much a GoldenEye machine. I played GoldenEye on it. I was the person who'd done 00 Agent, everything, all the way through, unlocked all the cheats. So 1 or 2 of the cheats I'd unlocked using codes.
Ooh,
but pretty much.
Ones.
pretty much everything I'd earned in that game. I played it a lot, and I was regularly playing it with my best mate and my brother, both at my house and at his, and then I had things like Perfect Dark and very much Lilac Wars, very much not a Zelda fan at the time. I wasn't really aware of it. Well, this is the thing, I was aware of it, but the demo of Ocarina of Time that you saw in every shop you went into, whether that was Debenhams or Alders or Electronics Boutique, because it was pre-game and all of that, back when you had EB stores still, and went in, and they always had Kokiri Forest.
Yep.
Yeah. So Kokiri Forest, the opening bit, and it was literally just the start of the game, and you could run around.
Shit bit to demo.
Yeah, like there should have been exactly. There should have been because
There's nothing to do there.
Well, there is stuff to do there, but like it was literally just the start of the game. You woke up in the forest, and if you were lucky and you'd gone into one where someone had actually progressed a bit while playing the demo, then you would find that you already had the sword and the shield, and you could go to the Deku Tree straight away. But I remember distinctly being like, "Oh, what is this game? It looks interesting. You're like an elf." Like I had no idea at all what the Zelda franchise was. I was just like, "Oh, you're kind of like an elf." And I ran around, and I was like, people wouldn't let me go to places, and it was really an odd experience because I was only experiencing it in 5-minute segments when I got a chance.
It's not an easy game to demo anyway, because granted, if you were to be thrown into like a fight or something, you can be like, "Oh, this is cool gameplay." Hashtag going back to pioneers of things, pioneers of Z targeting. But I mean, the whole game is a kind of really excellent narrative story arc. Oh, it's supposed to be anyway. It is. I don't know how you could demo that.
No, I'm not sure.
Well, anyway.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But so as I say, I was very much into Mario. I was very much into the local multiplayer games on the N64. I was doing GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, Mario Kart, Lilac Wars, which actually does have a crazy mode that I showed Wade because I don't think he actually believed me when I first told him about it.
I didn't believe you.
You can unlock by playing all the way through on the hardest difficulty. In the combat, the versus combat mode that exists, you could be the R-Wing or the tank, but you can also unlock running around with a rocket launcher as just the characters themselves, which is hilarious. And makes it really, really hard to hit. So
it does.
Yeah. So it's actually quite an effective method. But yeah, so I was playing all of those kind of games, and I just hadn't got into games like Zelda. And it really was my first game with a proper narrative, first RPG. I mean, it's an RPG, but it's not like, it hasn't got all the kind of leveling kind of stuff like you have in something like Final Fantasy.
Yeah, it's got a very tame version of it.
Yeah. And because this was back in the days when, you know, the idea of having 2 consoles in the house was basically unheard of, I didn't have access to Final Fantasy. TV. Yeah. yeah. No, on the little tiny, maybe 10, 11 inch CRT TV that my parents had in the study that we were allowed to play on.
TVs. They're so dumb, aren't they?
You had to plug it into the aerial port, so you couldn't use it as a TV when you had it plugged into the console.
No, you just plugged it into SCART, didn't you?
My TV didn't have SCART.
Your TV didn't have SCART? What kind of TV did you have?
I had, as I say, I had a very old, like, I'll try and see if there's a picture somewhere, I don't know.
Well, I imagine it would just look like a box.
Yeah, it was a black square box, I think it was probably a Philips TV, and it had 5 channels and AV.
Good lord.
And I just remember, like, the whole, you'd plug in the N64 and it would always come in slightly kind of grayscale, and then the colour would come in as it was picking it up and stuff like that. So I
do remember that.
And yeah, it had a built-in aerial that you had to unplug. So it had a built-in aerial, like, stuck in the top, and a cable ran down the back, and then you had to unplug that from the aerial to put in the AV input. And then later we did move on to having my parents' old, like, bedroom TV got moved in there, so that was SCART and had a VHS tape recorder built into it.
Nice.
So you could record your games onto VHS.
I have done that before. I have done that. But
yeah, a bit maybe. Don't need to sound completely like old man England.
Oh, we should.
Oh well, I mean, yeah, it was a crazy time. Crazy times.
Did you know Romania still sell CRT TVs?
I did not know that.
Like, when I went there, like, there were a couple of things I noticed. I know this is a huge digression, and I'm sorry, listeners, but at the same time, this is an amusing story. All I ever noticed was pavements that were being redone.
Yeah.
Okay. Coffee vending machines everywhere. Stray dogs instead of cats, and selling CRTVs. Still selling them. Like,
so crazy.
Oh, it's mad.
It's like how Japan was still selling Betamax. And just because no one ever believes me, and I always get this wrong because it's so ridiculous, Betamax was last...
Well, he was last seen in the film Fuck, what's that film? my great reference.
Your Baymax reference was Lost Big Hero 6.
Yeah, that one.
Yes. Just for people who don't know this fact.
Cut that so I seemed clever.
Just for people who don't know this fact, Betamax didn't end production until November 10th, 2015.
Are you having a bloody laugh?
That's sorry. I'd like to point out, on November 10th, 2015, according to the Wikipedia article, Sony announced it would no longer be producing them. Production actually ended in March 2016.
Well, I mean, that's
yes,
bad.
Every time. I always think it was like the early 2000s, and I forget that it was actually last year that they stopped making Betamax, which is crazy and ridiculous. But it was still popular in Japan, and, way better than VHS, even though it lost the war. But yeah, I'd not heard of Zelda. I didn't know what it was. The demos weren't good. But a friend of mine at school, this is probably 2 years into me owning an N64 at this point, because console cycles were a bit longer back then.
Yeah,
It's like
definitely.
4, 5 years. I think.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah. So I was probably 2 years into owning an N64, and I got one in its first year, but not like in the first rush, because it had taken time to convince my parents. So probably 2.5 years into the life cycle of the N64. And yeah, a friend of mine had been playing it. He kept going on about it and like this really cool adventure game. And I was like, oh, what is it? And he explained it. And I was like, oh, is that like silly game where you're an elf running around and can't get into anything? And he's like, basically, that's what I said. And he was like, yeah, no, it is definitely that game, but it's really good. It's totally worth getting. And I had Nintendo Magazine. I saw I think there was a bit of a guide or something in it. And I was like, oh, okay, maybe I should give this a go. Got hold of it. I don't think, well, we'll draw a parallel, I think, when we get to Breath of the Wild, but I had not seen before. I mean, firstly, it was cool having games that were 3D back then, because that was the cool thing about the N64. But the thing that was really eye-opening was after you've done that first bit, you do the Deku Tree, and you get out and you move onto Hyrule Field, and the whole world opens up. Like, it is hard to describe that feeling to people who are used to open world games.
We talk about this now, the whole world, and as Wilco says, we'll draw a parallel later, where we will compare sizes of maps, and we'll tell you how small that open world really is. Oh yeah, and I mean, it even had it didn't draw the full distance and stuff. It had it wasn't like a fog of war like in what's the PlayStation game, horror game, famous one where you're in a town. Silent Hill.
My brain was just going Sleepy Hollow, and that's a movie, not a game. Well, it might be a game, but anyway, Silent Hill has a fog on the game, which makes it creepier, but that's because they had limited draw distance on the PlayStation 1. And Ocarina of Time has a similar thing, but they made everything look clear. They just didn't draw everything as far away as you remember. It felt huge, but it was very cleverly done, considering the limited hardware they had back then. So, but yeah, just that took my breath away. And 100% completion, I'd probably argue no. Because I think I did 17 heart containers the first time I played it.
I've never done all the sculptures on it.
Oh no, I didn't do all the sculptures either. But I did, yeah, I mean, I basically, to a reasonable approximation, 100%ed that game.
Yeah.
I'd explored every nook and cranny, I'd done all of the main quests and everything, I completed it, I defeated Ganondorf multiple times, just to do that ending bit where you have to run down the tower, because I really like doing that. I was really rubbish at it, but I kept doing it. Yeah, but I really liked doing that bit because the music was really cool, and you had all the falling rocks to dodge.
It's the room with the 2 Stalfos in. That's the hard bit.
Yeah, that was tough. And I just liked fighting Ganon at the end when he turns into Ganon.
To be fair, that moment, that whole Zelda game has an excellent way of introducing bosses, and that introducing of Ganon was just so epic.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was continued into at least Wind Waker. I mean, it was in Majora's Mask as well, I think, the way they...
Yes, subtly.
But yes, they do the thing where you go into the room, the door shuts locked in most of these dungeons anyway, and then you see something, and then the monster comes, the boss comes to the fore, and then it comes up on screen, roars at you, and you get the name displayed. I mean, previous Zelda titles, you just went into a room and you fought the boss, you probably didn't even know its name.
Yeah, no, you didn't know his name.
So it was kind of very cinematic, making use of this kind of cinematic style they could do with the 3D games. And that was really cool. I mean, the first time you fight Goma.
Yeah, no,
you just go into
Goma
dark
to me
room,
is one of the pinnacle
big eye, and yeah, it was very well done, very well done. Yeah, I mean, moving on from that, my history was...
So we can actually talk about the Switch.
Yeah, I know. We got sidetracked, but,
Oh, these things happen. It's all backdrop.
yeah, so I did that. Majora's Mask I absolutely adored because it took the stuff I already knew from Ocarina of Time and put it in with a cool timey-wimey concept, and I love the changing masks and just like being able to be the Gorons and the Zora and all that stuff. That stuff was really well done, even though the story in that game is probably not as good. Because because it's hard to do with the whole kind of jumping around in time stuff.
Oh, it's fucking dark as well.
Yeah. 3 days remain.
Originally, there were 7 days. Well, they believe so. It's probably a topic for something else. But there you go.
Wade in as a video game expert in future episodes. But yes, so I had Majora's Mask, and then I got a GameCube, and the GameCube had Wind Waker, which had possibly too much sailing, but I really enjoyed it. It was cheap and cheerful kind of graphics, but I really enjoyed the game overall. As a kid, I really enjoyed it. Looking back on it, I think it probably does suffer from some dungeon design problems and probably too much sailing, although the re-release allows you to skip some of the ridiculous sailing. But that was a lot of fun and had some of the best music, because that was the first time I think it had a proper like orchestral score, because before you just couldn't ram that onto a cartridge.
I've not played it, so couldn't tell you.
It has, it's just got some really good music. Like it has the opening is like, because it's, if you look at the timeline, which is all convoluted between how the Zelda games link.
Oh no, it's so convoluted.
It's essentially post Ocarina, but not post Majora's Mask. There's 2 timelines.
Well, yeah, it's not even a timeline; it's a time web. Because it's like, anyway, that's a different.
That's a whole different topic.
Unless this becomes a Zelda special, in which case it is a topic.
It's in the Hyrule Historia, which I have over there with my other Zelda books. But yeah, it's basically Hyrule. The Hyrule, as you know it, got flooded. And that's why there's the big sea. And then later in the game, you go downstairs. you go down underwater and you find Hyrule Castle and stuff like that, like frozen in time and under the sea.
Oh, that's cool.
And that's really cool. And then you fight various types of Ganon, and then eventually Ganondorf. And then you kill him in officially the worst way to die in video games.
Getting a sword. As by screw attack.
Yep. A sword through the freaking forehead when you saw it coming.
And then turning to stone. Not just your body, your swords also.
Brilliant end to a game. But yeah, that was a really good game. But yeah, as I say, the music was really good, and it had, the 2 bits were great. There was the general sea theme was really cool, because it really got you in the mood for like exploring. And I think that's probably kind of a precursor to the kind of open world kind of music you get in Breath of the Wild. And it had the similar kind of thing where it was really nice music, but it would go slightly dark when you got near a monster, which I think was it's now very common in games, but that was kind of
super common.
Yeah, it was one of those things where I think it was probably very early on in people doing that. Like, there were obviously other games that did it.
I would probably say Silent Hill would be the first one to do that. But that wasn't necessarily music. That was more the radio stack.
Oh, yes, yeah. Yeah, but the 2 really good pieces of music for that, the sea theme, which is amazing, and the Legend of the Hero music, which is this kind of, I'm not sure what instrument it's played on. I'll have to look it up and I'll put the songs in the show notes anyway, but it's kind of on this bizarre kind of tinny sounding instrument, and it starts off, and you get like the history of Hyrule over these kind of what look like stone tablets essentially in the game, and that's really cool. So the music was great in that. Then we move on to the Wii.
That's right, folks. We're still not on the Switch.
Yeah, still on the Switch. But I was just on the... Yeah, so I mean, I didn't really have any of the handheld games other than Link's Awakening DX. So I missed all of the stuff like Minish Cap. I really wanted to get Four Swords Adventures, but I couldn't convince 3 friends that they wanted to play Zelda with me.
Well, that came as Four Swords came as a bonus on Link to the Past on the Game Boy Advance, so I had that. I played it maybe twice with other people.
But like,
that's good fun.
The draw of that game to me was the fact that you could play it with 4 people with Zelda. That was really cool, but it just wasn't a thing I could get enough people into. I don't know if we even had enough link cables to do that at the time.
Oh, link cables don't work anymore.
Then I moved on to having a Wii, and Twilight Princess came out on that, and I think the sword fighting was a bit meh on that, but I did play that all on the Wii. I didn't have the GameCube version. And yeah, Twilight Princess was pretty cool. You turned into a wolf. That was quite cool. There was some interesting fighting. I remember there being some sword stuff. There was stuff you could do with the Wiimote that you had these kind of sword fighting styles that were done with the Wiimote instead of... I'm sure you could pull them off on the GameCube as well. Like, it was obviously part of the game, but that was cool. And Twilight Princess was quite a bit bigger, feeling like it had the kind of Hyrule Field feel, but being bigger because it was a newer game. And I think they introduced... Was that the first one where they had like the magnet feet stuff going on in the Goron dungeon? That was really cool. That was a whole thing where you did the whole dungeon like upside down, basically, like with the upside down sections. That was cool.
Oh, well, that is interesting.
And yeah, the wolf sections were interesting because you had Midna riding on you and her hair could turn into a giant hand. So like there were bits where you had to leap and like kind of use her as a grapple. And it was interesting, but in retrospect, I don't really feel like I remember much about it other than it felt a bit like Ocarina HD.
Which there is a version of anyway.
Well, yes, there is. Ocarina 3D on the 3DS.
Well, that's essentially HD.
And then I had also on the Wii, because it didn't come out on Wii U, I had Skyward Sword, and I had a whole palaver trying to get hold of Skyward Sword with the special limited edition gold Wiimote that is lying to our left. Where Amazon failed to deliver it. And then I went, oh, but you haven't delivered it. And they're like, oh, well, we have to refund you. We don't have any. It was a limited edition. I was like, oh, great. And I luckily found it in a shop in Manchester, like the day after release. There's like 2 left in HMV. It was a close run thing. But Skyward Sword, I haven't actually completed because I kind of stopped using my Wii in the last few years of my PhD. I just wasn't playing it as much. And I think I played Skyward Sword a bit, and then I even actually kind of restarted it recently because I was just like, I don't remember any of the plot. I don't know what was going on.
Just better to restart, isn't it?
But I mean, I've mentioned it earlier. One thing they have in this really cool dungeon idea is they have this, when you go to the Lunario mines, I think it is. So Lunario is a place in Breath of the Wild as well. So, but I think
they recycle a lot of names. It's a lot of throwbacks from Breath of the Wild.
Yeah. But I think that was the first time that area existed. And it was a kind of deserty area when you get there. But there are these time crystals, and if you hit them, they send you essentially locally back in time. So stuff that was broken and couldn't move suddenly works again, so you can push all these minecarts around. And those were some really cool puzzles. In fact, leading up to, there's a puzzle in one of those dungeons where you're pushing a minecart which has the time crystal on it. And you have to leave it on, because otherwise there's no train tracks for the cart.
Yeah.
But you then move past all these laser turrets that weren't activated before, but are now activated, so you're trying to dodge that. That's really cool. Like, there's some really cool stuff with that. And I know there's a later dungeon because there's a guy who basically did a series reviewing like all the different dungeon styles.
Yeah.
And he's really interesting. And he was talking about there's a ship later on, pirate ship, that's similar, where you have to work out how to get out of a room to hit the time crystal on the top of the ship, which affects the whole ship at once, so that you can go in and out.
Oh, spooky.
Oh yeah, sorry, my automated light's going off. On to Breath of the Wild, because we're finally there after 56 minutes of podcast. Yeah, the Switch. So, Wade.
Yeah.
Impressions of Breath of the Wild.
I bloody love it.
Well, hang on, wait. Let's do a basic impressions. No spoiler horn. Then we will spoiler horn, and we'll get into some nitty gritty, I think, about what we like about Breath of the Wild. So yeah, first impressions, you bloody love it.
I bloody love it, yeah. It's fantastic.
Other than it's fantastic, which is obviously a great thing to say about any game. To you, is it kind of a standalone game, or do you compare it to other things? Do you feel like it did a lot of things that something hadn't been done before, or is it just that you like Zelda being done in this way?
I don't want to steal what other people say, but stealing what other people have said, in a way. It does the free world like so bloody well, because a lot of free world things aren't actually that free worldy. So take original Zeldas, for example. They seem kind of free worldy, but they're not. There's a pseudo linear path you have to do. The power ups you get are kind of, most of them are one-time use. Yeah. For the most part, you'll be like, oh, well, this was cool. Oh, well, now I've got this, which is better, and I'll never use this again. Whereas in Breath of the Wild, all your power-ups are given to you straight away. Let's go. Let's go! And then you go, and you're just trying to experiment with different ways to use them. And you know that you can do everything in the game from the get-go. Absolutely anything you could do. You just need to work out how. And it's all intuitive. It's all, the physics of the game works so well with each other. Like, if you think something works because it works logically, it probably goddamn works. Yeah, no, that's something I found very impressive. And, well, we'll talk about some speedruns and stuff later, I think, because that's something you really enjoy.
Well, I suppose we can talk about it now.
I thought that was a separate podcast, Tom.
Oh, well, yeah, I'm sure that will be a separate podcast, but there's various abilities, one of which is called stasis, which allows you to freeze a thing in time, and you can affect those items, and then they will have all the momentum that you've imparted to them in a kind of portal-y kind of style physics. It reminds me a lot of Portal-based puzzles, where, yes, you like power up a load of hits against a ball or something, and then it will fly miles. But there have been some speedruns where people do crazy stuff like grabbing onto a rock, using stasis on it, blowing it up, and then flying halfway across the map.
Yep. It's bloody impressive.
Yeah. And I think, I'm going to kind of echo those statements. Open world is amazing. And it's done, like, I like my open world RPGs, and I often don't finish the main quest. I'm going to definitely finish the main quest in Zelda.
I've almost done it.
I've almost done it. But like, I mean, I played Skyrim. I sunk hours and hours into Skyrim as an example. And we'll put in the show notes this map size comparison because it's amazing.
It's a really cool map size comparison.
It's really cool. It's a GIF that slowly like goes through from smaller maps and up. And you're like, oh, Skyrim, that's quite big. I think it was 14 square miles or something.
Nah, I don't know.
I feel like that rings a bell. And also Skyrim has like a whole underworld area as well. So essentially it's double that. But Breath of the Wild size blows that out of the water.
Skyrim was about 40 square kilometres. Good take.
Okay. So 40 square kilometres, and then Breath of the Wild is... You got that information?
360.
360. Wow. So yeah, massive by comparison. But yeah, so I mean, I really like games like Skyrim. And what I think has been done well is they've taken... Skyward Sword had this a bit. You had durability of weapons, and you could improve durability of stuff. And you couldn't carry all your items at once until you expanded your slots and stuff like that, and you had to go get the items to do it. But in Skyward Sword, it felt like it was in the way because they hadn't gone far enough. It was like a traditional Zelda game, but unlike a normal Zelda game where you just have to make sure you have all the bottles so that you can hold all your various items you need.
Yeah.
And then you slowly collect items. It did just kind of feel a bit imposed, like they were trying to do RPG elements but failing. And Breath of the Wild has gone past that to having a whole wealth of them, and it works.
The nice thing about the weapons breaking is you don't get attached to anything.
Yeah.
Well, you might, but then you'll use it.
Weapons.
You'll use it in a justified situation, and then you've used it, and you're like, well, that was cool, and I've used it in a justified situation.
But so briefly, coming back to the Skyrim point, like I enjoyed Skyrim. I don't think I ever finished the main quest. I did lose my save file for Skyrim, which was annoying, and I haven't got around to upgrading a computer, and I thought it was in the Steam cloud, but it was one of the few games that hadn't put that in place yet, and so I lost my save. Had to start again, and I've never got as far as I did on that original save. That's an open world game. You can easily get completely distracted by side quests, and I did. But there's just something kind of magical about Breath of the Wild that is hard to put my finger on. And I think there's definitely a mixture of nostalgia. There's the equivalent moment to Hyrule Field. Nothing's ever going to be quite as impactful as that was to me as a child, because nothing had ever been like that.
Childs are impressionable.
Well, yeah. And there will never be again, like, the same thing, the first 3D massive, like, field that you go into in a Zelda game. That was the first one. But, I mean, maybe the next thing is VR, I suppose. There'll be some crazy cool VR thing. But, yeah, the thing with Breath of the Wild is there's like a starting area which you complete, and then it opens up, and the equivalent moment was being like, oh, this is a Zelda game, and I can go do whatever I like now.
Yes.
Yes, there's a main quest in your quest log. You can go do that if you like. But the first thing I did was go, oh, I can't see any of the map. I'm going to go over there and unlock a tower. And that took me like half an hour, I don't know, like, because I had no hearts and trying to deal with the enemies that I'd not learned about yet and all that kind of stuff. And I didn't have the stamina to climb a tower, and it's just like all these things. And it really, it's really an exceptional game. And I mean, everyone's been talking about how great it is. So we are kind of, it's a overplayed record at this point, but
Whoop.
But yeah, it's a very good game. And I think we should probably sound the spoiler horn here. Where do we do this?
Spoilers.
That's excellent. And you just managed to keep it within the levels.
Booyakasha.
Yeah, so we're past the spoiler horn now, and we're going to talk about some story stuff, I think. So Wade is ahead of me in that he has actually defeated Ganon.
Fuck you, Ganon. You bitch.
Several times? Did I get that implication? Twice, okay. But I have explored everything in the story basically except fighting Ganon, and he's in a big castle. I don't imagine there's much in there that I'm missing from a story perspective.
No.
But Wade has explored more of the game, more of the collectibles and stuff. So that there's some stuff that we can't discuss just because I haven't got to it yet. Describe some of the cool moments you've had, I suppose.
Okay, cool moment number 1. Going on to the elephant. I can't remember its name. Going on to the elephant with...
Divine Beast Van Ruder?
Yeah, that one. Going on to Divine Beast Van Ruter.
Van Ruter.
That was a really cool moment.
Yes, yeah.
Other really cool moments... well, I suppose we could talk about it more.
Yeah.
So in that bit, these divine beasts are giant mechanical critters that are walking around, and they used to be really good, and now Ganon's taking them over, and they're really evil. Except they don't really do much, but that he's making it rain, and that's bad for Ruto's.
And not in the money way. In the Zora's domain may flood and kill everyone kind of way.
Yeah. There's always weren't worried about it, but they were worried about the Hylians. Anyway, you ride upon this Prince Zora lad, because of course you do. That's not in a sexual way. It's certainly not implied. Anyway,
Prince Zora, continuing the weird Zora sizing thing, where his dad, the king, is absolutely massive.
I did like his continuous Link.
Oh yeah. He's just really pro you.
Yeah. Anyway, so you have to get onto this divine beast, and to do it, he swims you around, and it starts chucking ice at you. And you're like, oh shit, how do I deal with this? And you very quickly realise that you have a stasis, which allows you to create and destroy ice pillars. Cryonis, yes.
Yeah.
Did I say stasis?
You said stasis, yeah. A thing we alluded to earlier, but I didn't want to explain too much. I just said their abilities, but you get these runes in the starting area, and you can later power them up. And there's a variety of them, and then there's also an amiibo rune, which is like a bonus one.
So you use that to smash these down, and then he rides you in, you swim up a waterfall with a really cool tunic that you've been given, and then you fly into the air, you whip out your parachute, except no you don't, you whip out your bow and arrow, you go into slow motion and you start shooting things. I can't remember what they were like cannons or weak spots. You start shooting enemy
they're like generators, I think.
Yeah. Weak spots. You shoot weak spots.
Use shock arrows to zap them and stop them from working. Temporarily.
And then you do that 4 times, 3 if you're good, 2 if you're better, 1 if you're amazing, because you could potentially get all of them in one go.
Yeah, but you'd have to be really good.
I got 2 of them in one.
If you've got more stamina, you could do it easier. Because I had very little stamina at the time.
But equally, I also missed one on one of the things, so it took me 4 flips anyway. Anyway, but then you get in, and that was really fun. Because that was before that, you hadn't done anything of that style in the game.
Yeah, it was scripted, but it was so cool. And then you realise that's... So I thought this was maybe just a scripted... a bit like that bit where you slow down. I thought that was just for this because it's a special fight. Then you realise you can do that whenever you like.
Do it whenever you bloody like.
That is really cool, and it's something I probably don't use enough in the game, especially since I now have this jump. Every divine beast you defeat gives you an ability from the spirit who was locked inside,
which are hilariously overpowered.
Yeah, I mean, but
you can turn them off if you like.
Yeah, you can turn them off, and I think there's probably an optimal order. I definitely think Ingmith's Grace first is
definitely
useful.
Definitely the best one. It essentially doubles your hit points.
Yeah, and that's really useful in a game where you're dying all the time. And it sounds like it's overpowered, but the number of times it heals you back and then you just get hit twice for something you weren't expecting, and you can still die very easily.
Run away!
But yeah, so you later get Rivali's Gale, which allows you to basically jump really high and use your parachute.
Yeah.
And I should definitely use that more when attacking things. Because I saw you using it again today, and I was like, oh yeah, you can do that. It's one of these, there's so many things like that, and it's easy enough when you've not been playing it for a few weeks to kind of forget about stuff that's in the game. But yeah, that was a really cool moment, and I was enjoying exploring the world and doing stuff, but that was the first part of the main quest I really did, other than getting to Kakariko Village. And I kind of stumbled across it. It didn't feel forced. I was exploring my own way, trying to find all the towers to fill out the map. Which, that was initially the first quest I set myself. I was like, I don't care what the main quest is. I'm going to go find every tower and fill in the map, because then I know where everything is.
It's reasonable.
Without realising some things about the game at the time. For example, I didn't realise that it's not like Assassin's Creed, where you go up a tower thing and it reveals everything around you, every tiny thing. It doesn't. You have to still go and explore and find locations for the names to get put on the map.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you can look at shapes of things and be like, oh, well, there's what might be a fountain over there. Go find a great fairy. but it won't say Great Fairy Fountain until you have found the Great Fairy Fountain.
Did a lot of map exploration by looking at the map and being like, that looks like this, that looks like this, that looks like this. Especially now I'm Korok seed hunting. I do a lot of map hunting.
Yeah, it's something I came onto later. I think I was happy to kind of go with the flow of the story and know there were the 4 points that I had to go to. And then just occasionally get sidetracked by a cool sounding quest. But then when I started doing things like the shrines more actively, I did start paying attention to the maps and being like, oh, well, that looks like, why is there an island in the middle of that lake? Probably got a shrine on it or something. And that stuff like that is a really effective way of finding stuff in the game. I've done various, when I was younger, obviously I wasn't so good at games, so there were times where I had to go and use a strategy guide. As like Majora's Mask, getting all of the masks was definitely a strategy guide requiring task when you're about 11, 12, whatever definitely. It was. Especially the Anju and Kefi mask, which is just very hard. Like, just making sure you're in the right place for everything at the right time is nice to have the guide there to keep you on track for that kind of thing. But Breath of the Wild is really a game where I've explored. Occasionally I will get very close to solving something and I'll just be like, oh, well, this is really annoying. I bet it's somewhere stupidly close. And every time I've always been like, oh, it was just around the corner. Or I'd worked out fundamentally the thing, but I'd not done it quite correctly. But it's only been 3 or 4 things. Nearly everything else I've explored it properly, just gone and done the story and done it via trial and error, because that's the fun of this kind of game.
It is definitely. It's definitely a learning experience. You get to use what you learn as well.
Yeah.
And apply it in other situations, which I find nice.
Starting area, you have these four shrines you go and do, and each one teaches you how to use a rune, and then you get a spirit orb, and you've got the rune, and you've done the shrine. And then later shrines, there's a whole range of different types, and there's some that are paired together, and you have to take a photo in each one, so you can get the layout right in both ones to get the various parts. And then there are others which build, and you can technically do them in any order, but there's definitely. I don't think I've yet gone into a shrine where I've been like, oh, I'm going to have to come back to this, other than the one where I had to take the photo from the other place. Yeah. Easier stuff is nearer the starting area and it gets harder, but then monsters are leveling around you, so it never feels like... It never suffers that problem if there's a really easy area. Because I presume, do Lionels come and spawn in the earlier areas after you've been there?
No.
They always have fixed locations that are a bit further away from the start. Fair enough. But, they get tougher, right?
Yes. The more shrines the more divine beasts you do, the more leveled up the enemies get, but they'll always stay in the same spots.
Right, okay. Yeah, so you go, stop fighting really easy bokoblins, and in fact, even the silver bokoblins, so the rating is red's lowest, and then it goes up to...
it's normal, then red, then blue, then black, then silver.
Right, okay. So, yeah, normal and red bokoblins, you can kill them in one hit with one of your bombs.
Yeah.
Just chuck them into a pile of them and they're all going to die. But a silver bokoblin, if you're not paying attention, he will have a really good sword and he'll come at you and you'll lose 8 hearts. And you're like, oh. Yeah. If you're just he's a general dude. So it is very...
General dude.
It's very easy to lose if you're not paying attention. Another thing that was really cool for me was was inside Divine Beast Van Ruta.
Yep.
So I'd gone in. There's this first time I'd come across the corruption in the game.
Mm-hmm.
So learned that you have to shoot the eyeball things to destroy it. Okay, that's cool. I had a bit walking around where I was a bit confused by... So in each of the Divine Beasts, you have to go and activate these various points to take control of it. And then when you go to touch the main engine, you get attacked by a version of Ganon, who's the final boss of the dungeon. You defeat him, and then you've saved the day.
It's pretty much the only boss of the dungeon.
Yeah, there's no mini-bosses. They're smaller dungeons.
Mm.
And that's a kind of an interesting change. But I don't feel like it's made the game worse. It definitely,
No.
It's different, and I know it's different. It's not the same. The dungeons definitely felt smaller, and I think one of them, the Rito one, I just found really easy.
Yeah, it was.
Because you just have to rotate it.
But it was fun.
Oh, it's fun, and the boss was quite fun, because it dodges crazy tornadoes. But, yeah, I went into this, and I had a bit where I'd forgotten that you could use Cryonis to open the gate.
Yeah.
In the water, so I just got a bit stuck. And then I'd done that, and then I was stuck again, and I was like, now what do I do? Oh, sorry, yeah, so that's why I was stuck. Yes, so the map, there's a map, and then there's 4 points you have to unlock. So the map was behind this grate, which you could lift with Cryonis. So I'd gone and I'd explored everything, and I was like, oh, now I'm stuck. I don't have a small key. I can't get to anywhere else. What do I do? I eventually twigged I had to go do the Cryonis to open that, because I always forget about Cryonis. It's probably my least utilised one of the runes.
Yep, it's the slowest.
It's really cool though, and you need it actually in the boss fight, because he starts throwing the ice at you, and you need it as a defensive measure. But yeah, you get the map, and I think, I don't know. I mean, you can speak to this because you presumably went and did it straight away, instead of getting lost, forgetting about Cronus, because the first thing they say is go get the map. And I think I got into the Divine Beast and I had to go to bed because I'd work the next day. So I forgot that the first thing to do was get the map, basically. And then I'd forgotten about Cryonis, so I wandered around for a bit, got a little bit frustrated, but not enough that I kind of went and looked it up in a guide, and then came back, remembered about Cryonis. I was like, oh, of course, because there's like a whole room full of water near it. And then when you get the map, you realise that the map allows you to control parts of the Divine Beast, and therefore change the dungeon itself to solve the puzzle that is the dungeon.
Yeah, that was really, really cool.
And just, realising it's like, oh, this is on another level than there have been dungeons previously in Zelda games where you've had to knock down a tower so it falls onto other bits of the dungeon and stuff like that. But this is very much controlling the dungeon, changing its layout to solve it as a puzzle box.
Yeah.
And that is a really interesting thing. And sadly, it's only 4 dungeons.
I was going to say, like, when you said that you don't think it was a bad thing about the game. It wasn't a bad thing about the game, but I would love there to be another 4 dungeons just for me to do. Because they were really fun to do. And a lot of the shrines as well are fun to solve, but very short. You spend more time finding them than you do doing them.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that. That's a really nice feel for the game. But every now and again, I'm just like, I just want to solve something really cool and get gritty into it. Because this is a game that's all about getting gritty into the exploring, not getting gritty into the game. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, the thing I'd like to see, because presumably with the runaway success Breath of the Wild has been, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see another Zelda on the Switch. Like, I wouldn't be necessarily surprised, because in the same way that there's Ocarina and Majora's Mask.
That's true.
Like, cause they've got the engine and stuff.
Yeah.
And that would be really cool. But if I had a thing to request in future games, it'd be like, I want more dungeons, because while the shrines are like mini dungeons and little puzzles, they're just like solving one puzzle room normally. A few have interconnected rooms.
Yeah.
I think all of the starting ones were a bit more interesting because they were showcasing the abilities.
Yeah.
And then there have been a few like that, like where you've had to use multiple abilities. There's
definitely a couple that are really long.
Yeah, there's a few really long ones with like proper multiple rooms, and there's a few where it's just the same puzzle but getting harder and harder each time. Like there's one with the electricity orbs. Yeah, that's really good. In fact, the electricity orb ones are all really enjoyable. They're always nice and challenging. They get a bit easier once you've done 1 or 2, but I've not found one that I was like, oh, that was super easy yet. Because the first one was introducing the topic, the concept, and then the later ones I found were all harder. I'm sure there's probably one now that's easier than the ones I've done. But that's the problem with like open world exploring. You can't have a perfect difficulty curve. But I mean, that's what makes it exciting as well. It's not just a linear difficulty curve. Sometimes you do something really easy and you're like, oh, I've bossed that because I've learned how to do this earlier in the game. And other times you're like, oh, this is difficult. What else has been really cool?
The music when you get into Hyrule Bloody Castle.
Oh, yeah.
But the thing that made this as well is you're going through most of the game and it's fucking peaceful. And you've spent 50 hours, maybe, let's pretend the average casual person goes between 20 to 50 hours before they do Ganon.
For reference, I'm at the 50-hour point and I could just go fight Ganon right now and I'm just putting it off. So that seems reasonable to me.
You walk around and the music is it's nice music. It's good music. There's nothing special. And it's normally quite quiet. It's quite
you get the
muted.
Fight music when you're fighting people.
Yeah. You go into Hyrule Castle and suddenly this incredible orchestral piece starts kicking in. And it's in Hyrule Castle, which comes up with a map similar to the...
like the dungeon
similar
maps.
to the dungeon
yeah,
maps.
So it doesn't have like a 3D X-ray map in the bottom right-hand corner.
It doesn't have nodes for you to go and activate. It just has the point for you to get in. But you are exploring this castle, trying to get in, trying to avoid critters that can kill you in like a couple of hits. And the music is just phenomenal. It was just so good and so powerful. It was so big, and it just felt like the epic crescendo to the quest that you'd had.
Yeah.
It was just such a great contrast. And honestly, it wouldn't have worked as much if the background music for all the rest of the game had been like also really like as voluminous. It just worked so well. Like, that was an excellent moment when I walked out into Hyrule Castle, and it just changed again. The two very subtly different ones from inside the castle, where it's all kind of gloomy and eerie. But then you walk outside and it seamlessly transitions into the grandeur. It's a castle music. I fucking love that.
The music there is good. I haven't spent much time in Hyrule Castle because I've not gone and fought Ganon. But I did go and sneak it. And the thing I like about it is I basically said today, actually, that when I go do it, I want to go in. I want to walk in the front door and I want to fight my way up the castle. I know that's a lot harder than... Because I've already gone to the top of the castle. You need to go there to get one of the final memories. There's a quest to unlock 12 memories, which then unlocks a final 13th memory, and that kind of gives you the backstory because your Link has amnesia in this game. And
I have amnesia! Let me get this straight. Is there anyone in this room who doesn't have amnesia? Futurama reference there. Sorry.
Yeah, I like the bit where everyone's like, oh, you can't remember all the shit that happened? And you're like, nope. And it's done well. Like, amnesia can be done badly in games, but I think because it's exploratory, it makes sense. Like, and you pick up the pieces as you go along. But yeah, so you've got these memories, you have these photos, you've been exploring the map, trying to find things. And I'd got the final one, I was like, oh, that looks like it's on this bridge because it's sunny. So you don't realise initially that it's in Hyrule Castle.
Yeah, no, the memory photos are pretty clever like that.
But after a while, you go, it's got to be in Hyrule Castle. I've pretty much exhausted every other option. And I was like, okay, well, I need to go and approach the castle. And I knew going like head on with less than 10 hearts at the time. I was going to die. So I'm not going to do head on. That's not what I'm going to do. And I think this is the thing I like about the game. There are other games where you can have multiple approaches, things like Hitman and Crysis did it in the first one, where like I stealthed the entirety of Crysis, whereas actually the most efficient thing in Crysis is just to put on the special armor suit power and just run through everything, and you can do every level in like 10 minutes. But I spent hours on Crysis levels doing it as a stealthy thing, and so that kind of feeling came back because the thing you learn in Breath of the Wild is that most encounters can kill you if you're not sensible.
Every encounter can kill you if you're not sensible.
Well, yeah, every cat. But like, if you come across 4 bokoblins around their fire, you throw in a bomb, blow them up, easy peasy. Like, one of them might be a bit tougher, and then you have to finish him off. But you can normally just run in. You don't have to be particularly sensible with combat against them. You'll take the damage, but you can just feel, it's fine. I've got some food. They'll probably give me a load of food. But yeah, casing out the castle was a lot of fun. Like walking around, and there's these flying kind of drone things, and you can work out their routes that they do. And I was like, okay, well, as long as I avoid that, I'm fine. And then you spot there's a waterfall on the back of the castle, and you're like, well, I have the waterfall armor. So you can swim up the waterfall at the back of the castle and get most of the way up. And that's roughly where this memory is.
There are like 5 or 6 different ways into the castle, but there's at least 5 or 6 different routes through the castle.
Yeah.
I think I've done all of them.
Okay, yeah. But like, I just remember, firstly, that makes you feel really clever when you discover that.
No, it definitely does.
Like, you're like, ooh, I can do a thing. I know how to do the thing. And then you go and do it. And also, because I was going, I knew I was under-leveled with it. Like, you can go and just fight Ganon straight away, like Wade was saying. It is possible to do this game in pretty much any way. If you have built up the skills like speedrunners have, you can just go and fight Ganon with 3 hearts and you'll have a hard time.
You have a disgustingly hard time.
But it is doable. I mean, you don't have the Master Sword or anything like that, but you can do it. And there's the Guardians, which are these kind of metal crab-like creatures with really powerful laser eyes. You can chop their legs off. That was the thing that a friend told me, actually.
Oh, I learnt it by accident.
I would have learned it by accident sooner or later. I just hadn't fought many, and someone told me, and I was like, oh, well, that makes the combat against them more interesting, because up until then I was kind of just running at them and then holding up my shield to try and take the brunt of the shot, and you lose shields very quickly that way.
Yeah, you do.
But you don't die, which was the key point. But yeah, if you go at the back of the castle, like the feeling of dread I got going in there, knowing I was underleveled, but I could sneak. I was like, I can probably sneak through. It's not like it's not like if I got seen, suddenly I get kicked back to the start of the castle. It's not like that sneaking thing in Ocarina. It's just like, if I get spotted, I might die horribly. And in fact, to go do that memory, you have to there is one of these flying drones really close, and you can get spotted. But there's also a tower to go hide in, so it's fine.
It's interesting that you brought up, obviously, the ways into the castle, because it just reminded me of something that's also really good in this game, is that if you don't know how to do something, you can probably just go straight at it and solve it.
Yeah.
But if you explore the map, you can find out different things. Like, I talked to a guy just in somewhere randomly, and he was like, "Oh, I've heard there's a secret way to get into Hyrule Castle," and he told me a way to get into Hyrule Castle. And that's why I didn't go through the main gate, because he told me a different way to go in, so I did. Yeah. And it's just like, that's just because I met some random guy and talked to him. Like, you know, it's a really neat little thing that you can find a load of information just by exploring the surroundings and use it.
It's also very interesting seeing how different people approach things, because we've discussed playing the game together, but because Wade's always been a bit ahead of me, we've had to be careful with what we're talking about for spoiler reasons. And then we both explored the same labyrinth and talked about it at the same like we both explored this labyrinth roughly at that same time. We talked about it, and we had clearly both had two very different experiences, which I didn't realize until today, because in the DLC, to unlock one of the special items from the DLC, you have to go to that labyrinth, and there's an underneath bit. And the only thing I knew was there was an underneath bit because Wade had mentioned it to me. And I was like, oh, I hadn't gone in there, at which point Wade stopped telling me about it, and I was like, okay, cool, well, I'll discover that on my own. And so I finally had a reason to go back there, and you drop through this hole that I just hadn't twigged was a hole, like, because it's an air vent. And when I was there previously, I was like, oh, well, that's just an air vent. But you drop through, and there's a load of these guardian, dead guardian creatures down there, and there's two chests. There was one chest when Wade went there because he didn't have the DLC, but the DLC chest is also in there. And I come in and I'm like, oh, because I'm still at the point where I've not really fought many guardians. There's a few where I know they're on their own and I can deal with them. And like, there's one where you can fly from a tower and basically drop on it from above and get a really good hit in and stuff like that. So if I need to go mining for materials to make the guardian resistant armor, I can. But I've not really fought many in anger. I'm now starting to fight more because there's just bits where I'm like, oh, well, I need to explore that area now, and they're there.
So before we get to Wilco explaining his experience of his room, because his is a far more game-learned experience of the room. I'll go for my experience of the room. When I drop in, I see a load of these dead guardians, and I'm like, oh, these are going to be careful here. So I sneak around, and I know that some of them might come active again if you sneak around them, because there's one dead one right in front of one of the very first shrines that you meet, and it comes alive. What a great lesson that is to start with. Anyway, so I'm walking and I'm being careful, and I'm like, oh, none of them seem to be coming alive. How excellent this is. Soon as I open the chest, 27 or so arbitrary number things come alive and start shooting at me, and I'm just like, oh my god, and I just had to leg it. I ran and barely survived. Wilco's experience was far nicer.
Yeah, so I land in there, and so having done the labyrinth earlier, I knew that there's two flying drones above the labyrinth, and there's one walking around guardian. But you can kill the guardians in one hit with an ancient arrow to the eye. I had about 4 ancient arrows when I dropped in there, and I knew they were good. I tested my first one against, there's a guardian that hasn't got any legs outside the tech lab you go to, and I'd come at it from behind with the Master Sword and killed it, and that was fine. And then later on I was like, oh, I need to test out how good these arrows are. I know they're strong against guardians. And I realised that one single shot to the eye would kill it, and it because it's pointing its eye at you to fire its laser and it charges up, you have the time to get off that shot if you're close enough. I did that when I came into the labyrinth. So the drones don't affect you because they're too high up. They're only basically there to deter you from just trying to cheat the labyrinth by getting up high.
Did on the second one.
Fair enough. But yeah, that's what they're there for. And obviously later, once you get better at dealing with them, you can. But so I had it come in, I have these 4 ancient arrows, or 2 I think I must have had 4. I was walking around one, I took it out with one shot to the eye. I was like, cool. I'm glad I did it that well, because presumably if I miss, it's not going to do as well. And then I wandered around the labyrinth, and I walked into one of these. I found a dead one, which I just picked up, search for parts. And I come around the corner, there's another dead one, and as soon as I get close to it, it turns around and shoots me in the face. And I was like, oh shit, it's an alive one, and I hadn't planned for that. So I'm very cautious around these things, because I know they can kill you pretty quickly. I land in there, and the one right near where you land was clearly like one of the properly beaten up dead ones. I'm not sure if there is a way of telling. There might be, but like there are some that always look a bit more dead than others.
Well, there is a way of telling. The way that you used.
Oh yeah. Well, I was going to get onto that, but I mean, like there's a. I'm not sure if there's a way of telling from like the character model.
Oh no, I don't.
There might not be, but I this one was right by where you land, and I was pretty certain I was within the normal detection range if it was going to detect me. So I went up to it, searched it, cool. And at that point, for the first time, something clicked in my head, which is, I hadn't tested it. I just hadn't thought to test it. So when you use stasis or magnesis, you see, so magnesis shows you things that are magnetic. And I've used that before, especially around water, because there's often hidden chests and items. But stasis does a similar thing where objects that you can move and affect stasis glow yellow when you have the stasis power equipped and you activate it. Well, you can kind of turn on this scanning mode and then you activate it on a particular target within range. And I'd used this before, and at no point in it just hadn't clicked, but this was the first time it properly kind of, my brain went, you know what I can do with that? I could probably see which ones are alive because I'd be able to stasis them. So I flicked on stasis, and sure enough, yeah, all the ones that can move are yellow, and all the ones that are dead are just, background. I was like, and it was just like this kind of a brilliant moment, and Breath of the Wild is full of these brilliant moments where you just discover something really. It's distilling all your knowledge of the game up to that point, and you go, it clicks. I've got this thing. Oh, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And then it goes into your toolkit, and I probably don't use these runes as much as I should be doing, and that's the thing I've kind of been working on, especially today when we've been playing. I've been like, oh yeah, I can use more bombs just to destroy enemies and not waste arrows and things like that. Because I still sometimes play it a bit more like a more traditional Zelda game, and yeah, it is a bit different. But yeah, that was just a great moment, and then I just kind of snuck around. And also the thing with stasis, you can use it to freeze them, so I meant I could creep up to these enemies. As soon as they notice me, stasis them, then run in and get a few good hits in with the Master Sword. And because they're the weakened versions, they die in about 3 hits. They're really quite easy to kill.
Buses.
And that was, yeah. So I cleared out that room one by one, got all the loot, and wasn't shot to pieces. I was about maybe 3/4 of the way around the room when you told me your story. So I was like, well, I wasn't going to just run for the chest anyway. So I don't feel like I've lost anything here, but it was funny to hear.
It was an enjoyable moment.
I don't know what. I mean, there's not much else to say, I suppose. There's lots of cool story moments and stuff like that. Oh, I suppose the one thing we should talk about are the collectibles.
Yeah.
Because this is part of why Wade has been spending so much more time on the game, even though he's technically completed it by killing Ganon. So there's a variety of things. There's obviously a lot of armor sets and things to collect, and they can all be fully upgraded. And there's lots of stuff out there with the DLC that adds in a load more of other stuff, like stuff from previous games, and a really weird red Nintendo Switch shirt that has one armor value. Know what that's all about. But it's just there. And again, you can sell that and then you won't get it back, but it's part of the DLC. But yeah, so there's 120 shrines, is it?
Yes, yeah. 120.
So every 4 shrines, you can get either a health upgrade or a stamina upgrade. And if you do all 120 shrines, you've maxed out. Mm-hmm. And they're just dotted around the map. Some of them, there are quests to help you find them, where you wouldn't stumble across those. A lot of them, like those ones I was doing today, without the quest. Yeah, there's no way you're going to randomly light a fire on top of this thing at the right time of day.
No.
so those ones require you to do it. And then there are others you just stumble across while exploring the map. And I think, did you say you've got 2 left to find?
I've got 2 left to find, and I have no idea if they're shrine quests that I need to, or if they're ones I can just find by roaming around, and eventually my sensor will go bleep bleep, and my heart will jump as I found 2 that I've got left to go.
There's one I think you might not have, but just because I thought it was really well hidden. But I won't tell you about it unless I'll have to have a look at our maps and compare.
Quite honestly, the chances are I have got it.
Yeah,
the odds are in my favour.
Yes, they are. But
at the same time,
there's one that when I found it, I was like, oh, it's kind of hidden.
Oh, there are loads that I found that I've been like, bloody hell, these are well hidden.
And I think that's the thing, you just stumble across these things in a kind of cool way. But yeah, so
120 shrines. That's a pretty big number. What's a bigger number than 120, Wilco?
900.
900? What does that refer to?
The number of Korok seeds. So shrines, you don't need to get all of them to finish the game, but obviously, as I say, they're like mini dungeons. So it's part. I feel like if you're going for completionist, I think going for all the shrines is entirely reasonable.
And doing them helps you obviously upgrade your health and your stamina, which helps you play the game.
So I've just maxed out stamina today with 66 shrines, I think I have now. And I've got half of the hearts. So, because you get some hearts from completing dungeons as well. So,
yes,
in traditional Zelda fashion. So, I probably want some more hearts before I go fight Ganon. That's part of the reason I'm putting it off. But I could probably do it now if I wanted. But yeah, so that's, I would say the shrines are a necessary part of the game. Even though it's annoying, obviously, if you've got 2 left to find.
I'll find them.
I think Koroks came in Twilight Princess.
I couldn't tell. I didn't play it.
They were definitely in Skyward Sword. And they've kind of replaced the Deku kind of...
Scrubbling type-esque people.
Yeah, so they've been different in different games. Because in most Deku Scrubs have been enemies.
Yes.
But there have been Deku Scrub characters in Ocarina and Majora's Mask.
Yeah, like merchants and things like that.
So I think the general idea that the Deku Scrubs that are attacking you are have been corrupted by whatever corrupted the dungeon. And obviously you can be a Deku Scrub in Majora. So those kind of, seem to disappear. And maybe even in Wind Waker. In Wind Waker didn't have proper Deku Scrubs. They're Korok-like things, but they weren't called Koroks. Anyway, they're like these children of the forest woodland kind of things. They look like they're made of wood and they have, their faces are normally leaves. And they're normally quite small, but you find this really big one just walking along the road. And he's like, "Oh, I've lost all my Korok seeds. If you find some, I'll help you out." And then you go find one there's one really nearby. I think he actually just points you to it. It's like a little quest.
I don't know. I found one before I went to him. So.
Okay. I found the first one.
But I knew they existed.
So. Yeah. I was aware of the concept, but I didn't know what I was looking for until I started. And that's part of what we'll talk about now. But, you go up to him when you've got the first Korok seed, and he's like, "Oh, if you pay me 1 Korok seed, you can upgrade either you can have another weapon slot, another armor slot, or another bow slot." And up until this point, you've been, you want to hoard weapons because they break, but you can't because you've only got 5 slots. So you're like, "Oh shit, okay, this is great." And you talk to him, and he's like, "Okay, I'm off to Korok Forest now. I've upgraded you." He does this cool little dance with his maracas, and then disappears. And I knew there were 900 of these in the game, and I was like, wow, that's a lot of weapon slots. But what happens, of course, is it's an exponential kind of growth of cost as you...
You don't need all the seeds as well to get max upgrades. The game wasn't that cruel.
Oh, okay.
You only need about 350 to do it.
Oh, so you've maxed everything out already?
I haven't because I haven't actually gone and spent the seeds.
Oh,
but
okay.
I've effectively maxed it out.
Oh, right, okay, I didn't know. That's interesting. Okay, so that's cool. I like that, actually, because I think that was the problem with, the Golden Skulltulas in Ocarina was... To get the final thing, you had to have all of them.
And it was a useless thing anyway.
Yeah.
Whereas in this, it's useful, but not required, and you don't have to get all of the 900 goddamn things to do it.
That's cool. I didn't know about that, so that's cool. But yeah, so these, basically, they're all little mini challenges, and you start to get good at them. I think, how many types did we come up with? Was it 12?
Oh, there's a lot. So there's jumping into a ring of lilies.
Yep.
There is ones that you can just find, and they're little sparkly things.
Yep.
Sparkle on the floor. There are ones where you have to shoot balloons.
Yeah.
And it's like a loose balloon, which is in the wild. There are ones where you have to go to a pinwheel and then balloons appear and you have to shoot the balloons. There are ones where you go to a pinwheel and then you have to shoot acorns.
Yeah.
There are ones where you just shoot acorns.
Yeah.
There are ones where you put steel cubes into steel cube pans.
Yes, that's using the magnesis power.
Yeah. There are ones where you stick a steel ball somewhere.
Yep.
There are ones where you roll a boulder into a hole.
Or between two trees.
There are ones where you pick up a rock.
Yep.
There are ones where you pick up a rock and put it in a rock formation.
Yep.
There are ones for shooting other things. There's other ones that I know you haven't done.
Yeah. There's the racing one we have to get through the...
Oh, yeah, there's the racing one. There's at
you have
least...
a time limit to get through a loop of lights that are also the time limit that appears somewhere.
There's one, they kind of count as just the examining ones, but you have to melt some ice to get to them, and they're annoying.
Yeah.
But that's about 14 different kind of distinct ones. And I know Wilco hasn't found some of the types yet, which is why I erred over them.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, there's some I haven't found, or there's some where I might have found them, but I've not. Like, there's ones where they're like, I'm not sure if what you're describing as acorns, but like things in the end of a tree stump that you have to shoot.
Oh, some people think they look like jars. Some people think they look like pots. I think they're acorns.
Okay, fair enough.
But yes, those ones.
Yeah. So there's things like that, and that's and they're all over the world. There's 900 of these little challenges, and how many have you done now, Wade?
About 460 something.
Wow. Yeah, like this is where I think a lot of Wade's time has gone, and
It is where a lot of my time has gone.
yeah, because I've been concentrating more on the kind of the kind of higher return on investment parts of the game, I suppose. Because
well, I've got past that bit.
Yeah, I've had less time to play the game, so I am behind on hours. And we've both now got the DLC because there's a really cool feature called Hero's Path where you can see everywhere you've been in the game, and play through it and see every time you died and stuff. And you can see I've been like, exploring the main kind of quest stuff, finding shrines, and then Wade has gone on long, epic journeys across half the map in search of seeds.
It was really useful though because we were like, oh, I haven't been to this place. I went there, found some seeds.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and it's really in depth because when I first watched it, I thought it was just showing you like the main paths in the game, but actually, if you zoom in, it's pretty good granularity of where you've actually been in the game. It's very impressive.
It recorded 125 hours of it.
Yeah,
before I'd even got it.
Yeah, I mean, they obviously knew this was going to be in the DLC. They included it, so it's already been recording to this file. So if you unlock the DLC, it shows you your path for everything before you bought the DLC as well.
Oh,
and it stores up to 200 hours before it starts erasing from the beginning. So, I think if you've done 200 hours into Breath of the Wild, you've probably seen most of it.
Probably.
I mean, if you're 125 hours in and you're over half the seeds, bearing in mind you weren't exclusively searching for seeds.
Yeah. No,
you can do it in 200 hours.
It's one of these things where it's going to be quicker, but it's still going to take a lot of time. I'd say I can average 10 seeds per session. A session being between 1 and 2 hours, maybe 3.
Yeah.
It's still going to take me another 50 hours to do at least.
Yeah. Mental. I think it's probably a testament, again, to what we've been saying about how good a game it is and how enjoyable it is playing on the Switch, that you don't necessarily mind doing that. Like,
it is a bit tedious now.
Yeah.
But until I find both the shrines, it won't be so tedious that I'm just going to stop.
Yeah. I think I would probably won't go for all 900 Korok seeds. I'll definitely want to explore some of them because they are fun little challenges when you find them.
Yeah.
And with the DLC, there is actually the Korok mask that helps you find them, which I've just unlocked. So that's going to help. So I might be able to catch up on Wade a bit quicker.
Wow.
That's the idea. I mean, obviously you can now go get the mask, and
that's very true
because you just bought the DLC. Yeah, no, it's there's a lot of game there. And I think the only thing is new games will be coming out. And the thing is, Zelda has had prime spot for a long time. It was a release title, and it sat there with no big first-party Nintendo title to come and take its place until this month.
So,
October.
Getting back to talking about the Switch, and this isn't a Zelda special, although it probably will be by accident.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the biggest Nintendo game on the Switch right now, so...
But one of the problems I think the Switch had, and I'm not sure this isn't a problem in terms of, because, obviously it's still sold volumes.
Oh, yeah.
And it's still doing really well. Just not enough titles.
Well, you see...
Loads of things announced, so few to buy.
It's interesting because I before I owned a Switch, it's one of these things where people were saying this. People are like, oh, there's so few. And you look at it, it has... I mean, you can't really do first parties with the other consoles because they're not the same as Nintendo. But there weren't as many third party release titles as other consoles have, because obviously Xbox, etc., are third party consoles. That's what they do. They run third party games, and they might have one or two. I mean, like Halo was owned by Microsoft for a while and stuff like that. But most of their games are third party. But if you compare it to, the Wii, the Wii U, and I think even the GameCube, it had the most released titles of any Nintendo console in the last few generations, which surprised me. But it's just, the thing is, it's Nintendo have often done this where they will release one big game with the console. So Mario 64, for example, was the big release title other than GoldenEye with the N64. Actually, was GoldenEye a release title?
I don't know.
But it had a bundle. I remember GoldenEye being a big bundle that you could get very early on. But yeah, Mario 64 was the big release title. Here is Nintendo's big first-party thing. And then, actually, if you look back on it, you don't remember the kind of time lag because, you're playing other things, but it was a long time until I think Mario Kart might have been a few months. You know, it may not have been quite as long as we've been waiting for this Mario game on this, but it's supposed to
Odyssey.
But yes, Mario Odyssey, because they led with Breath of the Wild. Mario Odyssey it's not the launch game from Nintendo, and it's coming after 6 months. But I don't think that's, if you look at it historically, I don't think that's actually particularly odd. It's just there's a lot more kind of indie stuff on the Switch and not as many kind of big third-party titles yet. But that's because people were worried after the Wii U, and now you're seeing lots of developers saying, yeah, no, we're definitely bringing this out on the Switch.
Yeah, people are definitely going to tech in.
Yeah, and in fact, there's been some big ones like L.A. Noire, which has been remastered on PS4 and Xbox, and it's coming out remastered on the Switch with some Switch specific features like the HD rumble that the Joy-Cons can do, and some extra like screen modes and things, and some touchscreen controls, which obviously the Xbox and the PlayStation don't have. So yeah, that's interesting because I mean, obviously they've had to be invested in that for a while, and it's a remake of a game. It's not even like a brand new game, but it's interesting that they've gone for that. So I think that shows it's got merit. People are realizing it's a big deal, and there's obviously a lot of indie games coming out on it at the moment. Like Stardew Valley's coming up later in the. There's a new Super Meat Boy game. There's a new SteamWorld Dig 2 is going to be released alongside with its releases on the other consoles and Steam. And there's what was the other one?
Couldn't tell you.
Oh, Shovel Knight. There's a new Shovel Knight as well.
Ah, yeah.
So yeah, there are definitely some kind of big indie titles coming out. Well, I mean, at what point do they stop being indie titles? But, you know, there's a lot of those kind of games coming out, and they're quite reasonably priced. Downloads like Snipper Clips is one of those, and you have Sonic
Mania,
and they're both £18 each downloads.
Yeah,
which
I saw that.
Isn't terrible. I mean, prices are a bit expensive on the Switch still at the moment for everything, but you know, you hear people complaining about spending £60 on a release title for a console, and you're like, well, that's the same price as Xbox and PS4 when they come out. It's just they tend to drop a bit quicker than Nintendo titles, because Nintendo titles I find hold their value a bit longer because there's often 1 or 2 releases from a franchise per console.
And at the end of the day, if you're sinking 100 hours into it, it costs so little per hour.
Oh,
anyway.
yeah, definitely. And yeah, I mean, yeah. But if you are the type of person who likes that kind of game, Breath of the Wild is definitely a good investment of money for the amount of hours you'll get out of playing it. I suppose just to wrap up, because we have nearly been recording for 2 hours and we're both getting quite tired.
Good luck editing this Zelda special. I mean, Switch special.
We'll just end up doing the Breath of the Wild outtake. The whole podcast. But yeah, so just I suppose coming back to the Switch.
Coming back to the main topic we've avoided.
So yeah, well, so Wade has brought his Switch down here to see me for a few days, and I mean, you've got it in its original box because you don't own a case yet.
Yes.
But actually, it's quite a neat box. I mean, the size of that box is roughly the size of, say, an Xbox 360. It's smaller, in fact. It's not as wide. And that's the whole box with everything in it. Well, I mean, it would be if you'd brought your dock. But
the only reason I bought box was because A, it would fit the controller in, and B, I didn't have something to like wrap around the inner tray. Because if I could have just got away with the tray, would have just bought the tray.
So, I mean, it's fairly portable if you just have the original box. I have quite a nice Zelda-themed carry case, which has... The reason I got this one, other than the fact it came with a screen wipe and protector built in the bundle for like £15 or whatever it was, but I think it holds a lot more games than the actual physical like SD cards for the games. It holds 12.
About 12 games yet. Yeah, that is a lot.
There's a lot of storage for games. Also, it's a snazzy Breath of the Wild Zelda-themed one, which I think is cool. So one of the great things about the Switch is kind of portability. It is... Nintendo consoles always lack a bit in power compared to like the Xbox and PlayStation and stuff, but
they do.
For the games that are on there with those kind of graphics, and as I say, they're very enjoyable, and there's other games that have been announced that are coming. And, you know, I don't care if it's in 4K really at the moment. I don't have a 4K TV for a start, but the portability side of it, it's... Some people say, oh, it's not a proper home console, but I would say it is a proper home console. It's just things are going more mobile, with mobile like eating into the kind of gaming markets. and tablet games, it makes sense that these things are going to probably merge. If consoles are going to continue, they're going to kind of merge into these kind of like controllers on top. And people have been saying this since the iPad came out, that this would happen. But I think this is the first time it's been done well, and people can see it working.
Yeah, no, it is. It is nice, and the other thing that's really nice with the kind of dock is like I've been before playing, and then my dad will come down and he wants to watch telly, and it's as easy as going, bloop,
Yeah,
and I can carry on. And I can either choose to carry on playing it on a screen which is perfectly good for playing it on, or I can just press a button, put it into sleep mode, and then I can pick it up whenever I want, and it'll be exactly where I left off.
yeah, yeah. And that's a thing that we probably didn't have the technology to do until fairly recently, reliably anyway. And it is a very seamless experience.
No, it's so incredibly well done.
And I mean, the thing I was until recently doing a lot of travel for work, and so I was on long flights, and I did it on a flight to LA. It's like an 8-hour flight after I'd finished doing some work I had to do, or I could watch some movies, or I can just pick up and play Zelda for like 6 hours. And I did, the battery life doesn't quite last you that long. It's not quite as long lived as a DS because it's a bit more intensive, and probably a nicer and brighter screen. Well, definitely a nicer and bigger screen.
Well, I got through mine to low battery and however long we were playing, because that was from full to
I think it's probably about 3 hours if you haven't
around that.
If you haven't put any of the battery saving stuff.
No,
on.
I didn't.
Yeah, if you're just using it on normal mode. But then nowadays on flights you've got USB chargers on your seats, so at least on the long haul ones, so that works perfectly fine. But even if you get 3 hours out of it, that's great on a long haul flight to be able to do something like that. And it's not so big that you can't hold it. I mean, I know some people will do it where they flip out the little stand, take the two controllers off and play it like that when they're on a flight. But I found, I was not being awkward. It wasn't awkward for the person next to me for me to be holding it like a traditional handheld, because it's not too big. And as Wade says, I mean, you'll be playing in 720p instead of 1080p when you're playing it, not attached to a TV, but you don't notice because it's on a smaller screen. And, it's the utility of it outweighs the graphics, I feel.
You might notice a little bit when you're doing something really intensive, like fighting is definitely a lot more difficult on a smaller screen.
Yeah.
But definitely for casual play or the smaller games, like there's a lot of indie games out at the minute, you probably, essentially the stuff that you're going to be doing while you're travelling, it's not going to make much of a difference for you. You're not going to play Splatoon on it, on the portable mode. If you do, you're a numpty. I
don't know if there's a local mode on Splatoon. I could maybe see that being a thing people would do.
Maybe, but I can't see you playing competitive Splatoon on it.
No,
a journey. But, it's like, if you think about all the old games you had, and you could play them portably, would you play Call of Duty on a train? Probably not. No. Would you play Mario on a train? Yeah, fucking would. Yeah. Would you, it's the same, it's the kind of deal with that.
Yeah, no, and I think that's, while it is currently expensive, I'm sure it will drop in price probably after Christmas, because it hasn't had its first Christmas yet. Because it came out in March, which is a weird release time for a console, but,
Wow, it did well.
It did well. It didn't care. So I'm sure it'll do very well at Christmas, and then there'll be there'll start to be decent bundles and prices will come down. But as an investment, compared to the DSs, which come out probably about, I think when the DSs come out, they're about 150, and then they drop quite quickly normally. So it's double that. So, well, let's say it's double a DS XL equivalent, but yeah, I mean, it has that benefit of being a great home console and also giving you that portability that the DS does, which is really cool. And hopefully there'll be some really cool kind of local Wi-Fi games coming out and stuff where you can take it and play, if you have 3 or 4 Switches and you get them all in the same house, you can play some there's some really good scope there for stuff that we haven't seen in a home console.
That works for Mario Kart.
I think it might, but I haven't got Mario Kart on the Switch yet.
Neither have I.
Because I already own it on Wii U, and it's like, do I want to buy it again?
No, I kind of lost my interest in Mario Karts after GameCube ones, which I played at my friends'.
The GameCube one was really good.
Yeah,
the Wii one was interesting. I didn't like the motorbikes that much.
Well, I enjoy playing them, but I'm not sure I'd play it enough to warrant buying it.
Yeah.
Whereas I still play Mario 64 Mario Kart 64
Yeah.
a lot.
So we've touched on... we've done a lot of Zelda. We've discussed the Switch a bit. I suppose just to kind of round this off and make it a full podcast about the Switch, we should probably just talk about what we're looking forward to. We mentioned a few games that have been announced, but like, are there any games that haven't been announced that you would really like to see a sequel to or a comeback for on this console? I can think of one that I think you might go for. I was going to suggest F-Zero. It would be awesome to see.
Yes, I would love an F-Zero game.
Because for me, the great thing about the Wii U was being able to play HD Nintendo games, because the Wii didn't have it.
I would only ask that they tone it down a little bit. Like, GX was too full on.
Yeah.
And the one... was there a one past GX?
I don't think there was. I thought that was
there was, but it was on a handheld only.
Oh, okay.
They just looked... But, I mean, this is just because I'm a nostalgia child and F-Zero X is like my favourite game. Like, probably ever.
You know, it's Nintendo's answer to Wipeout.
Yes.
And there's been some recent Wipeout games that are doing
the F-Zero was out before Wipeout.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like they have their... Mario Kart is like the casual kiddie racing game. And F-Zero is more like the traditional racing game and that they have. And that would be great to see.
It would be excellent. I would enjoy that a lot.
I really want to see a Star Fox because...
that could go really well, yeah.
The one that came out on Wii U didn't do so great. And so I think learning from the lessons, learning from the missteps there, I think they could then take because again, they're both HD. I imagine there's not too much they have to do to port a game to the Switch from the Wii U. And so it would be good if they could, like, you know, take the thing, learn from the things they did wrong there that people didn't particularly like, and then bring out a new Lilo Wars game, Star Fox game, depending on where you're from.
Maybe a new Donkey Kong.
Oh, that'd be good. Yeah, there hasn't been a proper Donkey Kong RPG since 64.
There was the newer Donkey Kong.
Because there's been some DS Donkey Kong Country like titles.
Yeah, maybe a new Donkey Kong would go well.
Yeah, I'd be happy with that. I never finished Donkey Kong 64 entirely, but I really enjoyed it. I
got quite far through and then my game save file corrupted and restarted, and I was like, well, I'm not doing that again.
Fair enough. I don't know what else I'd like to see. I mean, it's interesting. You know, I think it would probably be interesting to see what games I choose to buy on there instead of on Steam, like the kind of indie games. Because I'll probably be able to get games cheaper on Steam. But if it's something I can like play on the train into work or whatever, or for trips, then if it's like a shorter style game, then I probably would want to own that on the Switch. And there are definitely games that I've heard about, like I mentioned, Stardew Valley. I think I'll probably get that on the Switch instead of getting it on the PC, because I feel I'm more likely to play it on the Switch.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm not just trying to think what other kind of Nintendo thing. I mean, Super Mario Odyssey is coming out very soon, so I'm hoping that'll be great.
Hype?
Yeah, it's been hyped, but you know.
Oh no, I'm hyped for it as well.
I'm hyped for it. I'm looking forward to it. It'd be nice to see an original Mario Kart, but obviously they were just, to get something for release, they were just like, here's last time's Mario Kart with some extra features. Looking forward to seeing a proper Fire Emblem title, because I've not played one of the Fire Emblem RPGs before. I've always wanted to get into them, but I just didn't own any. So
got a ROM of one, and I started playing it, and I never got into it fully, but I'm sure I would if there was one on the Switch at a reasonable price, and it was good.
I would definitely like to see a Fire Emblem game, because there's Fire Emblem Dynasty Warriors, Fire Emblem Warriors I think it's called, is coming out, but that's not a proper Fire Emblem game.
Is it not?
Well, no, I mean it's a Fire, but it's not a proper, you know, it's a spin-off, because it's like Dynasty Warriors but with Fire Emblem characters.
Pokemon.
Oh yes, yeah. Now that's a thing where I think some people were expecting the Omega Sun and Moon. Was it Omega Sun and Alpha Moon, I think? No, not Omega. The new Sun and Moon game that I'm not going to buy because it's just a slightly modified version of the game I've already
Sun and
finished.
Moon were apparently some of the worst games anyway.
Really?
Yeah.
I loved Sun and Moon. They were great. It's a massive change in how the game plays and stuff, and it was all really cool.
Yeah.
Like, the thing I liked about it was it was a change of how things were done, and there was some odd stuff in there, but
No, I really enjoyed the change. Like, having not played it, I really liked the changes that you now have HM Pokemon, because that is just such a user friendly change.
Yeah, no, that was very good. But no, I mean, it was probably I think it was definitely easier, and they have got easier.
Yeah, they have.
I enjoyed it.
Okay. Well, anyway, I'd like to see a new Pokemon game. Switch.
Yeah, the idea of a Pokemon game which is more. I mean, they are slowly moving more to being like Pokemon Stadium.
I think how fucking easy it would be to trade.
Yep. Yeah. But I mean, that they have global trading now on the DS games when you're on Wi-Fi, so that
that's
like
true.
you can do like mystery trades and stuff. The only problem is like trading with some random person on the internet is not the safest thing, so you normally don't get anything great from it. There are some people out there being like, "Oh, I have my Lugia." It's like, you're mental. But a proper Pokemon game on there would be great. And I think gone are the days where we'd want something like Pokemon Stadium, because actually we just want a really pretty HD Pokemon game.
Yeah.
That's what we want.
Yeah.
It would just be a standard Pokemon game, but you'd be able to play it on the Switch. That'd be really cool.
I mean, it could easily have a feature that's similar to Pokemon Stadium. I mean, Pokemon Stadium isn't a particularly big thing.
No, the thing that was cool about Pokemon Stadium was being able to do 3D battles with your Pokemon. Yeah. And being able to play at triple time speed, so you could do the Elite Four even quicker.
Yeah. And
Dodrio mode.
And being able to get a legitimate Surfing Pikachu.
Yes. Anyway, I think that's probably about it for this evening. We probably need to go and sleep because we have recorded over 2 hours of podcast.
Thanks for joining us for this Zelda special.
Yeah, the Zelda special. The Nintendo Switch / Zelda special. This will hopefully tide everyone over until you get Mike's dulcet tones back on the podcast. When this goes out in probably a week or two.
I'm disappointed that isn't his name.
What, Mike's dulcet tones?
Well, Mike Dulcet Tones.
But yeah, so this is a special because Mike's been moving house and is without internet, and we're not in 100%. I mean, he has a date for when he gets his internet, but it would basically be the release date of this episode. So
yay!
Hopefully he'll have internet by then.
He'll listen to this and be like, "You went so off topic."
Yeah,
this is what happens when I'm not around.
Yeah, we need Mike to keep me on topic and stop me just rambling on for ages. Luckily, Wade is also quite talkative, so hopefully we've got a fair amount of balance between the two. There's definitely some bits where I was just talking like I don't remember when I started or ended. So. But we hope you enjoyed that, and tune in next time for the next proper Hat of Many Things episode. And good night.
Farewell.
Ciao.
So lemons.
Yes, and then we discussed lemons for several hours.
So lemons.
Lemons, yes.
There's going to be a supercut at the end of this
just
episode.
Lemons.
Where it's just
Lemons.
every time I say so lemons.